Yes, good old TJ.
Konnichiwa, news guys, boy and guy, back with another video, and today, guys, we are doing another Fate video. This one is back on Queen Medb. This is one is Queen Medb character development. The original link will be in the description down below. This is a video that you guys want me to react to. So, like I said, I'm gonna get to it. If you guys, like I said, if you guys want me to react to the video, you got a video in mind for me to react to, leave in the comments down below. I check all my comments. I respond to all my comments. So let me know. Yeah. So without further ado, guys, before we get to it, like, share, subscribe on the video, hit the bell notification, hit the noties, click all. Also as well, if you guys are new to the channel, you guys got recommended over here. We do daily content. Go ahead and hit that red button down below to subscribe. Try and get to that 1K. Go ahead and go follow TikTok as well. Incognito Ace just made it like last week, I believe. All right, guys. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So play. Kishun Hulk.
Jiahuish to all of you this fine day. Well, the month of March is here again, so that can only mean one thing. It's time for a video on Irish mythology. For those who weren't here the last time I did this, Irish March was a special occasion that I organized last year in celebration of discovering how strongly Irish my family background was, thanks to some record digging and a couple of DNA tests.
This is Golden Sun,
I
right?
had a vested interest in learning more about Ireland since I was about 12 or so, though it was something I had merely chalked up to general curiosity. With this knowledge in mind, it's become something of a personal quest of mine since receiving that news last February to learn more about the history and cultural background of the Emerald Isle, perhaps one day being lucky enough to visit or study. And since March has St. Patrick's Day as an ironically secular outlet for people to celebrate all things Irish, I figured I'd take the whole month instead of a single day to have some fun with it. So what direction are we taking this year? Well, what a time for the next chapter of Fate Grand Order to be released on the English servers. And what a time for it to be the chapter which involves several of the characters from Irish mythology. And what a time to talk about the character I teased in the last episode of Character Development because she's the primary villain of this story chapter. It's time to talk about Queen Medb of Connacht. While I realize that I've discussed Type Moon's Fate series a lot on this channel, including one of the videos from March last year, this is one occasion where I'd be quite a fool to overlook an opportunity like this. There aren't very many video games that really look into Celtic folklore for inspiration. Usually, if it is used, it's something pretty minor, like a character or generic enemy borrowing a name without going much further. Fate, on the other hand, offers 6 heroic spirits from Irish mythology and counting, with each of them boasting impressive callbacks to their points of origin. I'm happy to say that Medb has quite a bit.
Oh wow, why did like Brock to me right there
and
from Pokemon?
Bizarre lore attached to her, and I've been ready for a while to go into detail about it. I'm the Kitsune Hawk, and today we'll be going back to the Ulster cycle, but this time to talk about one of its main antagonists,
what you got for me, homie?
Queen Medb of Connacht, and how Fate's interpretation of her follows the epic. So get out your pencils, trivia enthusiasts, because this is character development.
So she's Irish? Want to cut a rug right now?
Naturally, because I have to talk about an Irish myth that is very heavy on the exposition, I need to first explain some groundwork of sorts before I can start drawing the parallels between Fate and the source material from Irish folklore. The Ulster Cycle is one of the 4 major sagas of Irish mythology, detailing the heroic deeds of the demigod Cuchulainn, including his battle against Queen Medb and the army of Connacht, the definite climax of the epic. Despite being set in the 1st century BCE, when Ireland was still a pagan society operating on traditional Celtic laws, the actual origins of the story don't seem to go any earlier than the 7th century CE. From whatever point it was conceived, the epic was passed down orally until the High Middle Ages, when it was written down in sources such as the Book of the Dun Cow and the Book of Leinster, both from the 12th century. In the grand scheme of the Ulster Cycle, Medb doesn't become a major character until the epic's last and most famous arc, the Tan Bocúlna, a name which translates to driving off the cows of Coolay or the cattle raid of Coolay, if you want something that rolls off the tongue more easily. The great climax to the Ulster cycle.
Yeah, I was about to
this
say,
arc
like, what does that
involves
mean?
A war being fought between two of Ireland's great kingdoms, Ulster and Connaught. The cattle raid begins by establishing Maeve's background through an aside set in her domain. It's stated that Maeve was one of the 6 daughters of the High King of Ireland, Ushar Fidlich. Through a series of bold political moves and regional rivalries, she rose up to rule as the Queen of Connaught, a large and powerful kingdom in Western Ireland. Under Brehon law, she was allowed to rule, own property, command an army, and have multiple marriages within her lifetime. But of all her recognized
Goodness.
husbands, the most important to the Tanbo Kulna is Alil Makmara, the chief of her appointed bodyguards. Through marriage to Maeve, he became king of Connaught, but because of his lesser background prior to marriage, it could be reasonably debated that Maeve was the dominant monarch of Connaught. As a couple, Maeve and Alil were quite alike in having prideful personalities, which incurs a spousal competition that soon spirals into international provocation and, inevitably,
They none of them is in the image of none of them together.
May have said that my fortune is greater than yours. You amaze me, Halil said. No one has more property or jewels or precious things than I have, and I know it. Then the lowliest of their possessions were brought out to see who had more property and jewels and precious things.
Wow,
Found to be the same
showing off
in
like
size.
their
There was
expenses.
one great bull in Alil's herd. Maeve couldn't find in her herd the equal of this bull, and her spirits dropped as though she didn't have a single penny.
Queen Maeve is alerted that a bull of
Imagine.
similar quality exists, owned by a vassal of the Kingdom of Ulster. Initially, with several offers of money,
Like, oh,
land,
I don't
and
got no
sexual
money for real,
pleasures,
'cause
the
you
vassal
got
lord
stuff better
agrees
than
to
me,
lend the
like,
bull to
what?
Queen
Oh.
Maeve. But when he learns that Maeve was planning on taking the bull by force, he retracts his consent. Angered, Maeve began to prepare her chariot and army for an invasion of Ulster, knowing well that they would be unable to resist, for they had fallen under the curse of the sorceress Maka, causing all the adult men to feel the sharp pains of childbirth for 5 days straight. The only person capable of standing
I
in
remember
Maeve's
that.
way would be the demigod Cuchulainn, and fortune did not seem to initially favor the Queen of Connaught.
Look into the future, said Maeve, and tell me what lies ahead for my army. Phelim replied, I see it crimson, I see it red. But that can't be, said Maeve. I have heard that the Conchobar and all the warriors of Ulster are laid low by the curse of Macaw. They are defenseless, my spies have told me this. Now look again and tell me what lies ahead. Phelim closed her eyes and looked into the future once more. I see it crimson, I see it red.
Queen Maeve's march forward also offers an opportunity to elaborate on her personality and style of rule. More specifically, Maeve is quite a lustful person, and she has a number of lovers outside of marriage.
Oh yes,
All the more when you
yeah.
consider that she has her husband and king, Alil Makmara, killed for cheating on her just once. The most notable of Maeve's extramarital partners
Yeah.
is
Could you?
Fergus MacLeod.
Hey, pause. Could you imagine? You have a woman that literally has multiple marriages and all this stuff, and she's married to you, so that means that she cheated on you with all these other people, but you cheated on her once, one time, and it's curtains for you. Can you imagine that? All right, play.
Former king of Ulster who defected to Connaught, and also the foster father of Cuchulainn. As you can imagine, this relationship becomes a real quandary for Maeve. On one hand, Fergus is one of the few who can fully satisfy her carnal desires, but on the other hand, Fergus still has sympathy for the men of Ulster and interferes with the invasion plans.
So Fergus was made leader of the whole army, but as they went on, a great love for his own province and his home came to him, and instead of going on northwards, he turned to the south. And while he was delaying the army like that, he sent messengers into Ulster to give warning and news of their coming. But Maeve was keeping a watch on him. And when
So
she
he
saw
was a
what
spy,
had happened,
basically.
She went to him and said, Why is it, Fergus, that we have turned again to the south? Then Fergus knew there was no use to try and deceive her, and they turned again.
So how does Fate Grand Order take in all of this? Well, quite a bit of her design choices have to do with her journey northward. Maeve's actions during the E Pluribus Unum Singularity are loosely based on her campaign to Ulster, just with her trying to take over the United States instead of Ireland. I swear it makes more sense in context. Additionally, her classification as a rider class servant is no doubt related to the chariot she took to her war with Ulster. She even calls forth her famous transport for her noble phantasm, the aptly named Chariot My Love, My Dear Iron Chariot. Looking more closely at the animation for Maev's noble phantasm, it's worth noting that her chariot is being pulled by 2 bulls rather than horses, as mentioned in the Ulster cycle. This was probably meant to reference her husband's
Wait, she had
prized
bulls
bovine,
instead of
as well
horses?
as the bull of equal quality that she looted from Ulster. As for the second half of her noble phantasm,
Yeah.
that rather obviously references Queen Maev's unmistakable libido. Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
After running over the target enemy with her chariot of bulls, Queen Maeve finishes the attack by having her way with them, if you know what I
Right.
mean. And it
Yeah,
does
let's just
bonus
say that.
damage to
I like
melee
how you put that.
targets
Yeah, having her
specifically.
way with him. Yeah, that's
Brilliant.
perfect.
Brilliant.
Perfect way to say that.
Another
For
point
YouTube
of note
context.
with Fate's version of Queen Maeve is her fixation on Cuchulainn, the one warrior she deeply wanted, but never would fall under her control.
Right.
Within the E
So she went
Pluribus
crazy
Unbound
trying to
chapter
go
of
after
Grand
him.
Order's story, we do indeed see what may have happened if Cuchulainn succumbed to Maeve's temptation, in the form of Cu-Alter. Granted, Fate takes several creative liberties with Cu-Alter, but the Ulster cycle does mention some form of attraction from Queen Maeve toward Cuchulainn. During the invasion of Ulster, Cuchulainn stood at a ford, demanding that the army of Connacht take him on in single combat. Queen Maeve and King Alu, who had divided the army in half between them, spent several days assigning different warriors to go forth and challenge Cuchulainn, but each champion gets cut down effortlessly. The
Right.
hero of Ulster goes for a victory lap,
Destroy.
and it's here where Maeve catches a glimpse of the demigod.
No man in Maeve's army escaped without some kind of wound, but Cuchulainn remained untouched. The next morning, Cuchulainn rose up from his camp and put on his best clothing to display himself to the women of Connacht among the army. The day before, he had seemed a monster in his spasm, but now he was the handsomest man in Ireland, with loose, flowing golden hair spreading over his shoulders. The women climbed on top of their own husbands to catch a glimpse of Cuchulainn as he rode past their camp in his chariot. "This is a nuisance," said Maeve. "The women are crowding so close that I can't even see this man." Then she climbed onto the backs of her own men to see Cuchulainn, and was awed by his beauty.
But perhaps the most peculiar element to Fate's interpretation of Queen Maeve is her aversion to cheese, most notably in her updated attack animations, where some manner of cheese-related item is tossed at Maeve, only for her to sense the oncoming projectile and deflect it toward the enemy with a well-timed kick. And yes, as quite frankly bizarre as this all looks and sounds, this is cleverly related to the Ulster cycle, or
I'm
rather,
dead, bro.
a tale attached to it. In an epilogue of sorts to the Tan Bocúlna, the later life and death of
This is
Queen
actually
Maeve
getting you a
are
lot more
displayed.
context into Queen
Following
Medb,
the
though.
success of her
It is,
invasion
though.
of Ulster, as well
Than
as
what
the
we
death
had
of
before.
Cuchulainn, Maeve continued to rule as Queen of Connacht into her old age, with her reign lasting around 60 years total. The elderly Maeve began to retire to a secluded spring on an island out on Lough Cree, a lake right in the heart of Ireland. But it was here that the sins of her past were ready to catch up with her. Ferbish Fairbend, the son of King Conchobar of Ulster, managed to discover Maeve's secret spring. Wishing to avenge the death of his mother at Maeve's hands, Ferbish measured the distance between where he stood and where Maeve was bathing, and he fashioned a sling of appropriate length. After perfecting his aim with targets placed at the same distance, he returned to the spring and picked up the nearest missile he could find. A piece of cheese. In his fury, Ferbish slung the cheese
Yo, the
at
cheese
Maeve,
again, bruh.
striking the crown of her head with enough force to kill her instantly. Perhaps Maeve's embarrassing demise was meant to contrast with her reputation as Queen of Connacht, or maybe with the heroic death of Cuchulainn. Either
Imagine
way,
a piece of cheese killing you.
Death by cheese. Lastly,
They're
let's
just
wrap
throwing
up our
cheese at
discussion
you.
of Queen Maeve by going over her skill set in Fate Grand Order. The discussion here will mainly be on her active in-battle skills, as there isn't much of note to her passive skills. Magic Resistance B is a standard perk for Rider class servants, as is Riding A, though given the way Maeve acts, I'm sure plenty of dirty jokes can be made about that.
That's what I
The first of Maeve's
said.
active skills is
Fry's
Golden
skill
Rule
probably an
Body
S.
A, which restores a pinch of HP, removes status ailments, and charges up her
Hey,
own
I'm so
phantasm gauge.
that's so
In
bad.
Maeve's statistics, it's mentioned that she has a, quote, goddess-like perfect body, end quote, which is quite an interesting detail to simply leave as a footnote. There's a fair amount of debate on the actual identity of the Medb presented in the Ulster cycle. Some question if she was an actual, historically documented queen who ruled in Western Ireland, while others ask if she was something beyond a normal human being. More specifically, there are theories positing that Medb might have been a goddess of sovereignty, one whom a king would ritually marry via consumption of a sacred beverage, thus earning his title and authority. These same theories also point toward the etymology of Medb's name, which in Old Irish means intoxicating, and is related in origin to the English word mead. Of course, the real truth behind Medb's identity has more than likely been lost to history, given strong Christian missionary efforts to either purge Irish paganism entirely or alter its records and stories to better align with biblical canon. Next, after that cheery note, is Charisma B, which becomes Queen's Discipline A after finishing Medb's personal side story. This skill boosts the attack power of Medb and her allies, and after being upgraded, it further boosts the attack of Medb.
I like that we getting information on FGO in the actual series itself with the character. It's pretty good, pretty cool.
This skill is meant as a nod to Medb's leadership as a queen and military leader. Medb's own subjects regard her as an effective leader, and her army is noticeably well-disciplined, but much of the success does stem from Medb offering sex slaves and other such enticing propositions to not only coerce more men into her army, but also to motivate them to seek further glory in war. Toward her enemies and anyone who refuses
Ultimate motivation.
servitude, however, Medb is anything but merciful and good-natured. Her potential for cruelty extends to her own allies, something which startles even her own husband.
Medb came back from inspecting the armies and said it would be foolish to go on if they let the troop of 3,000 Gallowin from North Leinster come with them. What fault have you found with them? Alil said. I find no fault with them, Medb said. They are fine soldiers. While the others were making a space for their camp, they had roofed theirs and were making a meal. While the others were eating, they had finished their meal and had their harps playing. So it would be foolish to take them, Medb said. They would get all the credit for our army's triumph. But they are fighting on our side, Alil said. They can't come, Medb said. Let them stay then, Alil said. No, they can't stay either, Medb said.
Wow.
They only come and seize our lands when we are gone. Well, what are we going to do with them, Alil said, if they can neither stay nor come? Kill them, Medb said. That is a woman's thinking and no mistake, Alil said. A wicked thing to say.
And finally, Medb's third in-battle skill is Siren Song C, which has a high chance of charming a male enemy and preventing them from moving for one turn, no doubt playing to Medb's seductive nature. Yet, in the Ulster cycle, despite how often Queen Medb gives away women as methods of coercion or has lovers outside of marriage, she herself states that she has a strict code when it comes to intimate relationships.
It is what I asked as a marriage portion, a man without stinginess, without jealousy, without fear. It would not be fitting for me to be with a man that would be close-handed, for my own hand is open in wage-paying and in free giving. It would not be fitting for me to be with a man that would be cowardly,
Wow.
for I myself go into struggles and fights and battles and gain the victory. And it would not be fitting for me to be with a husband that would be jealous, for I was never without one man being with me in the shadow.
You imagine?
And that will probably do for a comparison of Queen Medb in Fate Grand Order to the figure from Irish.
Alright, so we get it off right there. Queen Medb character development. That was actually pretty good. That was actually a good insight on the character. Like, went way more in depth of the characters. That was really good. I actually like this video. Alright guys, so without further ado, like, subscribe on the video, guys. We're on the way to 1K subscribers. Hit the bell notification, get them notice it all. Alright, and without further ado, 1K, I'm out. Peace.